Hi, welcome back to EMT 1111 Logic and Problem Solving. This short video introduces the concept of variable. One of the most powerful features of a programming language is the ability to manipulate variables. A variable is a name that refers to a value. You can imagine that the variable is like a box, a bin, or a container where you can store things. In reality, variables are memory cells in your computer where you can store values temporarily. Variables have two properties, name and value. Following our box analogy, in order to know what you have stored in your box, you have to label it. That would be equivalent to the name of the variable. The stuff you put in your box could be equivalent to the value stored in a variable. For example, you can assign the value 120 to the variable x1. If it was a box, it would store the value inside the box. In computer programming, a statement is a command that the computer has to execute. For example, the statement x1 equal to 120 is commanding to store the value 120 into the variable x1. This particular type of statement are called assignment statements. Statements usually have a side effect. In this example, the side effect is that the value stored in the variable or box is 120. So x1 has a new value. Before that, in this case, it didn't have a value. Here is one more concept to remember. A literal is a programming notation for a fixed value. Numbers are literals because they have fixed values. For example, 123, 999, or 1.24. Notice that this statement assigns the value of a literal, 120, to the variable x1. However, an assignment statement can be something like this. This statement assigns the result of an expression to the variable. Expressions perform some operation and return a value. Thus, the resulting value from the expression 5 plus 9, 14 in this case, is assigned to the variable. This is one more example. The value 40, the result of the expression 4 times 10, is assigned to the variable x1. One more thing to notice in this example is that the value assigned to the variable is an integer. Integers are whole numbers, numbers without decimals or fractions. Variable x1 could also have assigned a float number as value in this way. Or we could also assign the expression 105 divided by 4 to assign the value 26.25. Remember, float is the way we call a real number in computing. A string, a sequence of characters, can also be a value. Depending on the programming language, a string value is placed between a single or a double quotation mark. A value of a variable can also be the result from an expression containing other variables created before it. If we print x1 using print, this would be what we will see in our screen. Remember, statements in a program are executed in a sequential order from top to bottom. For example, if the first statement is x1 equal to 8 times 5, then 40 is stored in memory location reserved for x1. If the statement in the second line is r1 equal to x1 divided by 4, the program creates a variable r1 and stores x1 divided by 4 in it, 10 in this case. In the third line, our program overrides the variable x1 with the value of r1 minus 1. Then the value in the memory location for x1 will be 9. In the same way, our program replaces the value of r1 with the result of adding the current value of r1 to the product of x1 times 3. That is 10 plus 9 times 3. Thus, the memory location for r1 will be 37. As a programmer, you choose how to name the variables in your program or the script. A good practice is to choose a name that is meaningful and document what the variable is used for. Variable names can be arbitrarily long. They can contain both letters and numbers, but they have to begin with a letter. These are valid names. Remember, The names are case sensitive. As mentioned before, you can use numbers in the name of a variable, but a number cannot be the first character. After the first letter, a number can be placed in any position of the variable name. A variable cannot have spaces. This is not a valid name. A variable cannot contain symbols. When adding a symbol to a variable name, the program will return a syntax error. The only accepted symbol is the underscore. Remember, choose variable names that are meaningful and intuitive. Document what the variable is used for. At this point, you should be familiar with all these concepts. Remember that values are the units of data that programs manipulate. Types are categories of values. We studied the integer type, which represent whole numbers. Also, we talk about floats, which represent numbers with fractional parts, and strings, which are sequences of characters. Of course, the main point of this video is the concept of variable. A variable is a name that refers to a value, and we use variables to store values, right? We also talk about statements. In this short video, we talk about assignment statements and print statements. The assignment statement basically assigns a value to a variable. Another important concept is that of expressions. Expression is a combination of variables, operators, and values that represents a single result value. For example, 9 plus 4. Evaluate is a concept that means to simplify an expression by performing the operations in order to yield a single value. For example, 9 plus 4 evaluates to 13. Please review all these concepts and stay tuned for the next video. See you soon.